listen, I'm starting to not necessarily feel okay, but receive what has happened, and deal with it. I've already said to everybody, because everybody always starts with that, listen, it was a great game, and we got next year. Get out of here. Sell that on. I don't want to hear that. Not as long as I see other brothers in uniforms on Sunday. I don't want to hear. After the Super Bowl, then you start talking to me about next year when everybody else is looking to next year.
So let's revisit one of the topic bar questions from Game Day Morning on Sunday. Was this season a failure in Dallas?
Here again, you can't call it a failure because of the things that they've established moving forward. But this season, I will not call a great success. I mean, yeah, you set a regular season record. But how many people really going to remember that and having the best regular season record in Cowboy history when there were 5 of those times that ended up with the Super Bowl? So where really do you rank with that? And here, this is the lesson. It isn't great. It isn't great unless it's completed. It's the only thing people really remember is the completion. We don't even talk about 15-1 New England Patriots. They went 15-1. 15. I mean, they were undefeated regular season. They're 18-1.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And we don't even talk about that.
Well, when it all comes down to it, Michael, if I had told you when we got off the set in Game Day Morning or during the show that Dak would throw for 300, Zeke and Dez would get 100, Dez would score twice, Witten would get his first career playoff touchdown, you'd think that you're hosting the NFC Championship game. So why did Dallas lose on Sunday, in your estimation?
Well, and here, guys, Aaron Rodgers is just playing phenomenal football. I would spew it so loudly on the show Sunday because of who he was playing, but the reality is he is playing phenomenal football. I've watched over all of these games and watched it over. Everybody's getting mad at Travis Kelce for asking the referee to swallow his whistle, but the ref swallowed his whistle in Dallas. That dude hog-tied Irvin on that play and had his arm around his throat. Nobody calls it. Nobody says anything. But that's why Dallas is sitting at home. I think because they took too long off. I watched the DBs on those first 2 drives. Man, they were huffing and puffing. Their whole shoulder pads were moving. They were trying to grasp air so much. And I was like, wow, boy, these boys may be a little tired. And it took a little moment for them to catch their breath. By then, Aaron Rodgers had put 21 points on the board.
Well, let's also brass tacks it here. I mean, I like him. I like him a hell of a lot, Garrett. He's just a good dude. He's a good guy. But it just seems there were too many mistakes. How are there mistakes with substitution? How are there mistakes like spiking the football at the end of the game, giving you 2 shots at a first down now instead of 3, when if you're stopping the clock, you're giving maybe a chance for Aaron Rodgers to get the ball back with too much time left? I don't think that's 20/20 hindsight, personally. What do you think?
Yeah, it is some 20/20 hindsight in there because, listen, you got, like you just so eloquently stated, a 300-yard pass with a 100-yard on the other side. So you feel pretty good about what your offense has done. And you feel pretty good about possibly going to get that touchdown. So you spike the ball because you're trying to get a touchdown. You're basically already in field goal range, but you're trying to serve it and go get a touchdown. Me, myself, and here's the thing, Rich, that I always talk about, Rich. I mean, it's one thing to play great football, and that's what Dak Prescott is doing. And, I mean, just incredible. Had an incredible year. But as time goes on, wait till he get real crafty with it, like what the Aaron Rodgers does. You don't see any hard counts out of Dak Prescott because he just doesn't handle it all like that right now. You don't see the hard counts. You don't see where you're coming at the ball saying spike in that situation, and you have a hookup with Dez. Dez, if he's pressed, you go. I'm going to throw. If he's off, you just give me a quick hitch. I'm just going to raise up and throw you the ball. You catch it and get out of bounds. That's when you start adding that crafty stuff to your game. And that's the next level that Dak Prescott has to go. And it's that level that you say this is why it's difficult for a rookie to win a Super Bowl. Because as you get into the playoffs, It's not just about playing the game. You got to play crafty football and use everything you have, like what Aaron Rodgers is doing.
Michael Irvin here on the Rich Eisen Show. I had Troy Aikman on the show yesterday, asked him about Romo, and he says he doesn't think Romo really wants to retire and that Jerry Jones probably hasn't given it really much thought yet because he hasn't come to grips with the reality that he is going to have to part ways with Tony Romo. And then we hear today, asked point blank about it on a local radio station. He says, I don't have to address it yet because I haven't really gotten to it yet. So what do you think happens here with Romo, Irv?
And Rich, you saw in the piece that I did with Jerry on the show, he was frank about it. He said, hey, man, you don't spend that kind of time with people like I spent with you and like I spent with Romo and not get personally involved. It just doesn't happen. It's not humanly possible, So I know it's a difficult decision. That's axiomatic. We know it's a difficult decision. But it's a decision that has to be made, and he's made many difficult decisions. And Tony wants to go play football. Tony doesn't want to sit another whole year. If Jerry could have his cake and eat it too, he would pay Tony a great amount of money to be the highest paid backup ever in the history of the game. But that won't feed Tony's belly. So they got to make a decision there. And I think he'll do everything and anything he can to help Tony get to a good spot.
Because, Jason Garrett couldn't even wouldn't answer point blank if Dak's going to be the starter next year. I mean, we took that to mean that this is he's got to wait to hear from high up about what happens with Romo first.
No. Jason just did what he did. Trust me, Dak's going to be the starter next year.
Mm-hmm.
Dak's going to be the starter because of what I just said. Now, if the man took you to that record without knowing the craftiness, the crafty stuff, and then he spends the off season where he's more comfortable with this system. And remember now, that's the roommate of Zeke. So when you knock out one, or you're knocking out two, the same two that got you here, we can't even fathom that decision. It'll be out here, and maybe it'll be left lingering for a while, so everybody can still talk about the star when the star is sitting at home and not on the football field. But it's a decision that must be made, and it is Dak Prescott's team.
Would Jerry trade him in conference, do you think? Or would he just get him to the AFC so he doesn't have to?
No, I don't. Well, and he's certainly not anywhere in the division. I don't know if he'll do it in conference. Somebody has to step up and do something pretty great for him to do it in conference, I believe, where it's just a package he couldn't let go. But possibly, if it's up to Jerry, he'll definitely send him to the AFC.
Before I let you go, Irv, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about Antonio Brown.
Denver would be good on this place. Denver would be good. Now they got Vance Johnson to put in his own defense. Now you can bring Tony Romo in and stick in his offense. There's no need of bringing Tony Romo in if you won't use his offense, because now you're not allowing yourself to take advantage of his greatest asset, which is experience in that system.
But I think they want Lynch to take the job next year. I think that's what they'd like, and have the young coach and the young quarterback grow together. That's what it seems like.
They want another year what they had. I told you at the beginning of the year, you didn't get in the playoffs with what you had. Dude, I know what you want, but can you deal with it? Can you deal with another year of what you just had last year, or do you must you get back into that playoff before this defense start getting old? Mm-hmm. That's just the bottom line.
Before I let you go, as I said, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Antonio Brown Facebook Live. Tomlin was upset about it, said he's going to punish the player but not the team, that it was out of bounds. What did you think of when you heard about this?
I love that. I love Tomlin saying that. Sounds like Jimmy O. Johnson right there. Wait a minute now. This regular season game, I could do more things, but not right here. When we had one dude miss meetings right at the Super Bowl, and you missed the meeting anytime during the year, Jimmy said, that's it, you're not playing. Jimmy looked and said, God, listen, the rules are the rules, and we'll pick them up next year. We're going to play in this game right here with this Super Bowl, though. So I understand what Coach is saying right here about not punishing the team. Flat out, simply, Antonio, that was off the chain crazy. You can't do it. I understand we're in a world of social media, and these kids are who they are. A lot of us old rigid people don't understand the intimacy. The intimacy, hear me out. Intimacy says, get into me, see? that this group and these millennials have with social media. So we sit back and say, oh, my God, dude like me, I ran from it. They're running to it. That's just what it is. You know what I mean? He is out of line for doing that in that moment right there. But you heard this, guys. I keep telling you, football's too hard. They say, can you please play harder? Listen, you know, everybody wants you to play harder. That's what you heard in the locker room was what you always clamor for. Get us closer to the game. Get us closer. When you get this close, you can't be appalled. You got to deal with it. Mike Tomlin, he did the right thing, apologized, but I didn't think he needed to. That was his moment in that locker room, and he has to say what he has to say to get his team ready to go in here and fight a battle in New England. So cursing, all that stuff is part of our world. If you want that close in, be ready with your ears to receive what is said.
You're the best, Irv. I appreciate it. I'll see you on Sunday for 6 hours of game day morning to Marcus Ware and everything. And I just wanted to call and hear your voice. And all of us were genuinely concerned on the text chain, the game day morning text chain with all the producers and on-air people that we hadn't heard from you until about a half hour after the game. I'm glad to see you're okay.
Yeah, you saw that text I sent on our text chain.
Oh, yeah.
I said, I'm dealing in depression here. I'm dealing in depression.
You were.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay. Love you, Irv. We'll see you Sunday.
Love you too, Rich.
You got it. There he is, the one and only Michael Irvin.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.